information is it's not an app, it's an ecosystem, right? You know, same thing with, you know, rail and roads. It's not cars and trains, it's transportation.
Welcome to the Enterprise Intelligence Podcast with CEO of Shiny Docs, Jason Cassidy, and VP Customer Success, Davey Slimman. Gentlemen, how are you this week?
Very good, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah. It's sunshiny here. I don't know what it's doing where you guys are at. And we're coming out here in the nation's capital, coming out of a week or so of rain and gray and the like. So it's kind of nice to have sunshine and that kind of stuff. So doing well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very, very, very pleased right now. And the spring, you know, the feeling of rebirth is awesome in that, you know, you're selling software, supporting customers. We got some cool success stories that have gone out recently. Milton, that video is lovely, and opened up lots of doors for us. So it's just a good time to be alive in the spring, and when things are going well, it's appreciated too.
Is that your topic? Because I think that's a great topic. Do you want to talk about that? I think there's something to that. You know, it's really funny you mentioned that. I had this is completely unscripted, by the way, but I had the exact same thought just the other day. I'm a lifelong hater. That's a strong word. I'm for my whole life, I have not loved spring. You know, it's messy and wet and, you know, usually cold and sometimes windy and everything's muddy and dirty. But for the first time, I think in my 52 years, I'm actually kind of loving spring right now for exactly the reasons that you're talking about. It's this rebirth. It's like another chance to start over and get things going in every aspect of your life, right? So I think about it a lot in the context of my kids. I think about it a lot in the context of just plants and trees and all that stuff. Yeah. I wonder if there's any science behind that in terms of, you know, people's relationship to their work, people's relationship to their jobs, whether there's something inside all of us that says, okay, well, when spring rolls around, this is another shot. Well, this was not my topic.
Yeah, no, it's worthy of exploring for just a second. I'm going to throw it there because, I mean, we want to keep this to information management, making people successful with information. Mm-hmm. But it's obviously everything in the world is connected to some degree. I will say that everything is cyclical. Everything has a cycle associated with it. So there's no such thing as, you know, take fitness, like your normal fitness thing. You can't just, you know, ramp up the intensity infinitely because that things break. You have warm up, you have intensity increasing, you have maximum intensity, then you have cool down, and then you have recovery. And that applies to practically every process in nature and every process in any kind of engineering, whether it be engineering a solution for your end users or engineering a solution for building a dam or whatever. There's a cycle associated with this thing, and then there's maintenance, which follows a cycle, and other things as well. And that reminder is really good because you're reminded that nothing is just a project. We're not doing the 2023 project. We're just following a bigger story arc, a bigger cycle. And this project that we're doing is just a micro iteration of a cycle within a bigger cycle.
I like the way you tied it back to real work and real enterprise work. And it reminds me of something that I've been saying out loud for years. And sometimes, you know, I think sometimes when I've been broaching this with, you know, folks that we're working on you know, information management work or large scale, long projects, sometimes I feel like it's been a little unwelcome, but I keep saying it anyway, which is that we absolutely have a cycle that we work through every year as we go through our information management practice. And it has a lot to do with the realities of a calendar, what we think of as a calendar year here in the West, where, you start in January, it ends in December. And we always try to break things up into quarters. But, you know, we plan these projects as though each of the days and each of the months are equal, but they're not. They're different, and there's a cycle to people's lives. Obviously, there's a cycle to things like holidays and vacations and things like that. And so whenever we've tried to do long term project planning. For some of these long running projects that run 18 or 24 months, or that indeed kind of are more like a practice than a project that never end, you have to take these cycles into consideration, because you might think that we're doing a 12 months of work every year, or 12 months of activities, but those 12 months aren't all created equal. And you get December, which is kind of a half month, and a whole bunch of other things that play into that cyclical element. So yeah, look at that. All that just from me saying I turns out I kind of like spring.
There you go. It's cool. So you get credited with starting the first topic. I'll hit the second topic, and then we'll hit your first topic third, if that's okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So my topic being very topical. So it's www.shinydocs.com/trial, or more modernly, people are dropping the www.shinydocs.com/trial. So the idea of having a trial version of your software, and of course I'm going to use the word free trial. We're not going to charge anybody for this. It limits you for 7 days to do anything that the product can do. However, we limit it so that you can't connect to your file shares and your SharePoint and all that. So you get to see what can be done to files in your documents and data. Yeah. However, it's limited to your laptop or your desktop or your virtual machine, wherever you decide to install it, and then a terabyte or so of whatever data that you'd like to throw at it. So hopefully some stuff with duplication, PII, some records, that type of thing, to see how powerful it is. Now, as we do this, it's interesting because our ideal buyer is in some cases ambiguous. And I feel like it's the same thing as saying who's at a if you go to a golf conference where everybody's a golf enthusiast, well, what's the title of the people that will show up there? It could be CEO. It could be anything else.
People who love golf.
People who love golf. Exactly. Yeah. So in our case, it is people who are tasked with either making people better with information, or perhaps they're tasked with compliance, or perhaps in a lot of cases, especially in big companies, they don't even know. They're just told to do this shiny thing because they bought this shiny thing. So it is interesting. So as we do a trial, I feel like it's going to be a super positive thing, because people will just see it's like, hey, this is real automation. It just does it. It's going to save us a ton of human power and work. It's going to free up our people to, be better, make better informed decisions. However, because, it's implied that it's sort of a tech thing. I'm installing some software on my desktop and I'm going to point it at some documents or whatever. Does it actually hit the audience that ultimately is the decision maker, the buyer? Like I was on a call with 67 town clerks on Friday morning. It's fantastic. Cool. Would I expect 67 town clerks to go and download this thing? Probably not. Should they? Probably. However, they're not going to be the people that are operating it. However, they are going to be the people who actually go, yeah, I'm the buyer. This saves my people a ton. It helps me do my ATIP and FOIA requests. It helps me. So it's an aspirin or painkiller for all sorts of things for them. Right. However, they're not the person who's definitely going to be installing it and trying it, despite the fact that they have the maximum to benefit. So the question then is, free trial, who's it good for? And it's like, does it serve the purpose that I hope it serves? Or how should we position it to make sure that it does?
Well, I think one of the things that's absolutely amazing about the Shiny Docs Pro trial that we have available right now is the ease with which you can get it going. Like, it wouldn't do us any good to have a free trial that nobody could install and run themselves. The fact that it's so easy and so straightforward to install and run means that, does it help to have a big IT background? Maybe, but you don't need it. You can, if you know how to double click on an executable installer, you can basically get the thing running. and very, very quickly start to see some real action and some real outcomes. So I think, back to your golf analogy about who goes to a golf conference. I mean, the people who are going to benefit from this trial are the ones who care the most about figuring out what they need to do with their data, whether it's, kind of getting rid of stuff that has no business value or duplicate data. Maybe they want to save some bucks on storage. They all come, kind of like your golf conference, they all come to it from slightly different angles or things that they want to focus on. Kind of to extend the analogy further, maybe your short game, Jason, really struggles, so you're going to go to the golf conference and you're really going to look at putters and all the different fancy putters. But maybe I'm the greatest putter in the world, but I can't get rid of my slice, and I can't. So I want to see giant, drivers and things like that. So I think to match it up with Shiny Docs Pro's trial, we're going to absolutely have people that are going to come to the party with a very specific, problem that they're trying to address. But they're not the same ones. Obviously, in the case of Pro, great tool for quickly identifying things that look like, potential PII, potentially personally identifiable information. We may get tons of folks that just want to look at that, and they aren't particularly concerned about duplicate data or
search or
search. Or search, exactly. In fact, just to keep it completely current, had a great conversation with a customer this morning where they're incredibly focused on getting rid of duplicate data and data that they don't need anymore because they're paying too much in the cloud for their content. They want to shrink that down, so they're paying less. And search is not at this time a big focus for them. Will it be later? Maybe, but it's not a big driver for the moment. So.
Yeah, in similar, and nobody's going to be insulted by this. Similar to the golf analogy, I'm going to suggest, and there can be haters that hate me for this. Most people who go to the golf conference are not good at golf.
Oh, for sure.
They're objectively bad at this sport.
Right.
So, and I think about that with respect to the trial too, is that there's no expectation that you're good at information management.
Right.
And this is one of the problems that we have with respect to our marketing is we have lots of friends who are information management professionals. You'll see them like and subscribe to our LinkedIn stuff, and we're friends and we meet them at conferences and all that kind of stuff. Not necessarily our target audience, because they already know how to do a lot of this stuff in 7 different ways. This whole idea is how to package it up. Yeah, totally. It's preaching. It's to package it up. It's like, we like watching, the Masters was just in the weekend or whatever. That's good golf. And we like that. And we're enthusiastic about this. Mm-hmm. However, we don't know what we're doing. So just, give me the automation, show me how to do it. And I think there's some alignment there, is that the idea of the target audience isn't necessarily the IT person. It's somebody who goes, I kind of don't care how the magic trick is done. I'll never be able to hit the ball 350 yards. So do we have software that just does that for me? Is there a magic golf club that can just do that for me?
Yeah. And I'll build on that to say that, and this is provocative by design, what I'm about to say, information management as a discipline and folks who've been engaged in that work for a very long time have, I think unintentionally become gatekeepers for this kind of stuff, right? So, the domain of knowing about your data and knowing about your content has been kept from a lot of the business. And, you could argue that, well, the business is making Word documents and Excel documents and they don't care and they're not interested and they're focused on selling grapple grommets or selling widgets and things like that. They don't really care about the exhaust of unstructured content that's getting created by all of the PowerPoints and all of the Excels and all the PDFs that they create year after year. But by the same token, they've never once had something so easy and clear to allow them to quickly see that stuff and realize that, oh my gosh, I could be making better choices about this stuff, and B, this stuff's really powerful and meaningful for me. I need to be able to find it really quickly. I need to be able to find what I'm looking for with precision so that I'm confident that I'm looking at absolutely the right version of a document that I care about. And as I say, I think in the past, I think some of that's been kind of kept from the business side, and just something, somebody else is worrying about that, so I'm not going to think about it.
Yeah, and
No.
it's it aligns. We're a few of us were at AIM
Right.
International's conference there a few weeks ago in San Antonio. Beautiful town, by the way. Like
Yeah,
walking
I love
around the
San
Riverwalk's
Antonio's
gorgeous.
great. Yeah.
And but Peter Aiken, who's the president of
Hmm.
DAMA International, gets up there and in about 300-point font on the big screens, it's saying something along the lines of people making data informed decisions just doesn't happen enough. And he was saying that 60% of leaders just go with their gut and they don't trust the information that's given to them. So this is the first time ever, like there's a point of inflection right now that
Yeah.
I believe has to happen where you're talking about the bias towards looking back at your data. My job is to make sure that it goes into the right folder, the right box, it's labeled properly, or that type of thing. Has always been 100% the focus of the information management professional, because to get it done, it has to be 100% of your focus. But now there's enough automation. Now there's enough
Yeah.
scalability within the systems. And I'm going to pat ourselves on the back. We do a very good
Yeah.
job at this.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, there's a burden on the information professional to say, I got to turn around and look out at the business, because the idea that my leader is not making decisions based upon the information that I'm working my butt off to make sure is valuable
Right.
and stored properly and these types of things,
Yeah.
that's not good.
Yeah.
So we need to be looking out at the business saying, how can I get it to the point where 60% of the decisions are being made with the information that I look after?
Yeah.
How do we get it to 90% or 100%? Are they going to be better decisions? If they're going to be worse decisions, then what can I do to the data to make it more valuable and better to
Yeah.
make a good data informed decision? And that is a cultural shift that needs
Yeah.
to happen, steeped in the technology that is available now.
Yeah, look, I'm sure each of us can think back to, heck, think off the top of my head of a half dozen stories quickly of examples of decisions that have been made in the past that were absolutely done on gut feelings, because they're, and this was articulated out loud in boardrooms that I've sat in and meeting rooms that I've sat in. Well, we can't trust that. I don't know that, I know you went and looked at that data, but that's probably not right, so we can't really go on that. So what do you think we should do, guys?
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, are we
Yeah.
okay with this? Are we okay with just,
With all of our selfish biases,
right?
which lane are we going to pick? And it is in the absence of having trusted information that happens all
Mm-hmm.
the time. And then we all complain about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yet it's, as information professionals, I'm going to lump myself in
Yeah.
with that community, is it is hard to turn around and look out and go, man, it's my job to make that boardroom make a good decision. Wow, that's hard. I'd rather turn around and look back and make sure that all the information is great and then let them discover where it is. But unfortunately, that's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
There's way more work to be done to not only manage the information and make it, findable, searchable for a legal purpose, but to actually make it useful for a business purpose. It takes a different level of thinking and forces your hand on automating, that management on the back end.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Cool.
Yeah.
So somehow that was the trial conversation, and we wrapped it up with something I think a little bit bigger, but that's good. So Davey, you got
Go try Shiny Docs Pro trial. Go get it right now. 7 days. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yep. Steve will flash the URL up there.
Yeah. Like and subscribe. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about, which is a flavor of something we've talked about before, so you'll forgive me for kind of reintroducing a topic that I think has come up once before, but it was really the chat that we had. We had a great chat yesterday with a longstanding Canadian executive that was really enjoyable, and in that chat, we talked about a lot of great thought leaders out there, people who are keynote speakers and authors and the like. And one of the folks that we talked about was a gentleman named David Kepron. I don't know if you recall, and this was a really interesting revelation for me. I did yesterday evening did a bunch of digging and reading and really dove into some of the stuff on David Kepron's website. He's a multifaceted blogger, author, speaker. And, the thing that I really keyed in on is the topic that we've talked about a version of this before, which has a lot in the context of information management and information governance, which has a lot to do with done being better than perfect. Or there are different ways you can categorize this, but fortune favors the brave. All these different choices and expressions that kind of are related to this, which is the bigger thing that you can do than the perfect thing is act and action. The first step towards solving an information management problem is more important than perfectly solving all of your problems. And so to tie it back to Shiny Docs Pro and what we're absolutely seeing in real time with all of our customers right now is exactly that. These customers that have said, we've got 1,000 problems and I can't fix all 1,000 of them. There's not enough time. There's not enough people. But I what I can do is I can tell you which are the biggest ones that really stress me out and that really keep me up at night. Can we tackle those? You betcha, right? So I think one of the things that's terrific about Shiny Docs Pro, and certainly obviously the trial is a great kind of connector to that for people to give it a go, is that if you believe, as I do, that it's more important to act than it is to act perfectly. Act now versus figuring out how to act perfectly 12 months from now. Get things going, get your first problem solved, and then move on to the next problem, then move on to the next problem. And so I don't find that traditionally in information management, information governance, there's been a lot of comfort with that. This idea of fortune favoring the brave, or just acting as, with agility and getting the first problem solved first and the second problem solved second. Rather, people want to tackle the whole thing. And I think that's another reason why these things don't succeed. It's like, well, the perfect gigantic thing that we wanted to do didn't work, so it's a failure.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah,
yeah, it's the classic example of this. We just submitted an RFI for a big government customer recently, and they've had a failure of their enterprise information management program, as they call it. And the failure was the normal failure, the very predictable normal failure, which is we've been at this thing now for 10 years and we only got 5% of our data in there, or 3% of our data. Well, of course you did, because you chose a migration and a consolidation when the ecosystem doesn't want to migrate and consolidate. It's like saying we're just going to replace cars with trains tomorrow.
right.
I like trains, and man, I take the train into downtown Toronto now all the time because the car is hard.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't mean we're going to eliminate cars. It's you recognizing that you have an ecosystem of information, and we're going to do things with this ecosystem of information to make sure that people can find what they need and make sure that they're compliant. It's totally different than saying, well, we used to have X and now we're going to move it to SharePoint. That's what they were hoping to hear, by the way. I'm certain of that. Sure. It's not like, and I'm not saying SharePoint is bad, and I'm not saying that X is good. Whatever the two choices are, but all of the software is good, and it technically does what it's supposed to do. It's part of an ecosystem, and until you recognize that, say it to yourself in the mirror 50 times and saying, information is an ecosystem, it's not an app.
Right.
Once you say that to yourself and you convince yourself of that, then you can start attacking it as an ecosystem. Okay, it's not cars versus trains, it's transportation. Okay? It is not a delivery company, it's logistics. Once you start thinking about the problem properly, then you can start acting. And this takes, it's similar. You're talking about the gentleman kept to give me his name again.
Yeah, sorry, it's David Kepron.
Kepron, thank you. I want to make sure I got that correctly, because I did check out his website, and I know obviously some of his work's been lauded. That's fantastic. And there's another local talent here, April Dunford, who talks a lot about product positioning. And I think this is the whole idea of product positioning, is the idea of if you position saying, I got an EIM problem, so I need an EIM solution.
Right.
You're boned, because now you're going to say, well, I'm going to use, can I use open text? Well, that technically
Right.
works. Can I
Well, I
use
bought
laser fusion? That
the
works.
app.
Yeah, like the app's good.
Why is my problem
Yeah,
solved?
Steve, stop using what you're using and start using this other app. And then Steve will get mad at me. He's like, yeah, does it work? I'm using Adobe Suite and I'm using 100 other tools. Does it work with all that? No, but you need to change you, Steve.
I know. I just have to undo more than 10 years of using the same software to try something completely new.
Yeah, nobody's going to do that. So, but when you recognize it's an ecosystem, it's like, okay, how can we invite Steve in with the way that Steve does business? Recognizing that he's part of the ecosystem, it's a different conversation. So the positioning really matters. And I feel like even with Shiny Docs, we've done a bad job of that. And I hate to use the word bad, because I mean, people will feel who we love and who've worked with us will feel I'm personally attacked. But it's not a personal attack. It's just the idea that when you say something like, for example, I pick on the word information governance. I love information governance,
Sure.
and I know a lot about it.
Sure.
However, when you say that, then right away people will say, well, how are you better than Purview?
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
well, Purview is part of an ecosystem. And if you have everything in SharePoint, then you can probably use Purview. However, you have to be a kind of a Purview developer. And this is a whole story arc. You just opened up a can of worms.
Yeah.
But they didn't. When they asked me about Purview, I did, because I dropped IG as what we do. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We found the tagline for this, Steve. We found the tagline for this one, which you said, Jason, and it was when my brain just fireworks went off. But like, information it's not an app; it's an ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with rail and roads. It's not cars and trains; it's transportation, right? So, yeah, I think people who are ready to embrace that are also, I hope, simultaneously the same ones who are predisposed to act, who are just saying, you know what, I get that there's just it's a whole ecosystem of stuff. We all know how we got here. I'm in the compliance group within my organization, or I'm in IT within my organization, and it's a mess. But it's our mess, and it mostly works. But there's some things that we could do better. I'm predisposed to act. I'm an action-based person who's going to get something done, and I'm not going to solve all of the problems today, but I'm going to solve the first one today. And I'm going to use a tool that operates across this whole ecosystem to get that done, right? So
yeah, for sure. And I mean, you can decide, because if you are an individual or you have a small team that is doing information management, you can decide, am I a prison guard? Like, am I just standing guard, making sure everything's compliant? Right. That's a thing. And then there's people who wear a similar uniform with similar training who are what I'll call a police officer. There's different levels of police officer. There's ones who think that their job is to shoot bad people. That's not your job, by the way. Right. Your job is to make sure that we can safely conduct our day. So it might be directing traffic. It might be solving problems, when people can't solve them themselves. Yeah. You have the authority to solve problems. And are you a prison guard, or are you a police officer? And the best kind of police officer, the one who's actively, everybody's saying, thank you for helping us through this conflict or this situation. Happens all the time. And you get to decide, like what type of peace officer you're going to be as an information professional. It's kind of the same idea. Yet there's lots of different ways of going about it. And when you look at it as far as a ecosystem like transportation, you recognize quickly that your job is logistics. It's directing traffic. Okay. Yeah. And that's Shiny Docs Pro is like file logistics. Yeah. It's not, and I mean, if you look at Gartner would call it like file analysis software, and you can lump us in with them, and you'll see lots of overlap of what we do with file analysis software. And that's fine. It's when I call it file logistics as a traffic metaphor, then you quickly realize it's not about, did I park the truck at the right parking lot? And can I find the truck? Well, of course, we're all good at that. But no, there's goods that need to get from point A to point B. The truck is a vessel for this. How do you do this? How do you do it most efficiently, most cost effectively? And safely. Right. Oh, yeah, for sure. So when you think about it in that terms, I want to safely get the information delivered to the right person at the right time. It immediately eliminates the, oh, well, yeah, just putting it in storage place X doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be searchable. It needs to be findable. It needs. And then you can ask, well, how do we give it those things that it needs?
Yeah.
Maybe you do need, hopefully I just sold 1 million units of Shiny Docs Pro by people going, oh, logistics for my files is different than its storage location and the metadata explicitly assigned to it.
Yeah, and I mean, again, these analogies are all you have the best analogies.
Thanks, man.
I really the logistics one, especially in the context of traffic or directing traffic, is really landing for me because I've been, part of my role is I talk to customers all the time, and I've been having incredible conversations over the last week or two, especially with customers who are coming with a real diversity of pain points or things that they're trying to solve for. They're not all the same. They don't all have the exact same pain points. And we've talked about what, some of the main things that Shiny Docs Pro helps people with. But the analogy back to traffic is really interesting. If you think about a really busy intersection, in KW, that'd be, Fairview or whatever Fairway Road is, or
Yeah.
King and Weber. So some big
One of the three
one of the many King and Weber intersections in KW.
Yep.
Some big traffic intersection, and all of the complexity that comes with it. You've got 8 lanes of traffic coming in together. You've got people that they're being driven by a need to turn left. You've got a mom with a stroller who's trying to cross at the crosswalk. You've got somebody who's running late and they just want to blast through that as fast as they can. The analogy works really well for me because that is also consistent with what I'm seeing in these really great conversations with customers lately, who are bringing a diversity of pain points and diversity of needs to it. So for some folks, it's data storage. We've got a giant data storage problem. In other cases, it's we can't find the stuff that we're looking for and we can't find it with confidence. In other cases, it's somebody who says, there's new legislation that's been passed around privacy, and we really don't have a handle on it. And so we would simply like to get a better handle on it. And that's all okay, but it's in line with what you're saying about logistics for your files, right? So yeah, that lands really well. File logistics. I think we just coined a new Gartner analyst magic quadrant.
Maybe. Well, we'll have to Google it and see if anybody else has peed all over that one and marked their territory. But it's I do like it because it does tell the story. And all technology, this is the problem, is that people have very functionally fixed thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So if I need to go to the bank, do I go to the bank and fill in a little slip of paper and have an interaction with a teller? If I want to read the news, do I have to get the newspaper delivered to my front door? If I want to, get a map, do I need to phone, CAA or the American Auto Association and get a triptych sent to me? Those are all things that used to happen. And now there's this.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the whole idea tech, is that you take all these disparate things. Nobody realized that saving money on storage and complexity on storage. Nobody realized that making it so that the fire chief can find the information that they need to do the job. Nobody realized that being compliant. Nobody realized that doing FOIA searches or ATIP requests or these types of things is all exactly the same thing. It's the same logistics problem with the same solution. It's more this than it is having a paper boy. So, but the problem is people have, I'm the news guy. I need to get the news. So I need a paper delivery person. It's like, nope, you don't. So it's just hard to fix that functional fixedness in people's brains, but tech always drags people there.
Yeah.
And what's funny is once it gets ingrained in society, then all of a sudden it's just normal, and who doesn't do it is stupid. Like back in 1996, nobody did a financial transaction online.
Yeah.
Nobody went on their smartphone and did anything.
I didn't for a really long time.
Yeah. Lots of people, it was around 2006 to 2009 when people first felt comfortable buying something on Amazon or doing a bank transaction online.
I
We
was
were probably a little earlier than that, but it was
yeah,
still, it was a long time.
yeah, no, for sure. Well, and so much so that you know, certainly, you and I both are parents. We have kids. Trying to explain some of the realities of a paper-based world, or even a pseudo-digital world, to this generation of kids that are 20 or so or younger, and it doesn't compute. It does, no pun intended. It literally doesn't make sense to them. And I've had conversations with my kids about that. My kids are younger than yours, but you know they are being brought up, and they will enter the workforce into a world where uh, the idea of some of these older models will just simply make no sense to them, and they'll refuse to participate in them. So much so that younger people joining the workforce won't go into those jobs because they can see that they're not good.
Yeah.
This is just not the right way to do things,
Oh, for
because
sure.
society and technology and everything has marched on.
Yeah. And I mean, and they're not the problem. In fact, it's like everybody loves to blame the next generation. It's no, we're the problem. And it's people, us and people older than us who didn't get the memo,
Yeah,
that didn't see the collapse of specialization into generalization through technology, who say, no, it's my job to babysit the box and label it.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
not giving up that job. You're going to have to fire me and give me a package in order to do that. And I'm not saying that that's a bad job. I'm saying that's an important job, especially if pulling that is a medical record or
yeah.
some legal text that's going to help society. All those are very important things, undoubtedly.
Hmm.
However, it's it's not the logistics that's going to actually make us better in the future.
Yeah,
So how do you get there is you need to become a student of these logistical issues, and it starts with the recognition of what the game is that you're playing. Back to April Dunford and product positioning. The game that we're playing is an ecosystem game of information, and how do we best service the ecosystem? We don't think of it as a fixed thing of I look after the boxes, because as soon as you functionally fix yourself, then all of a sudden you're just not part of the next wave of the technological revolution, and you end up being roadkill along the way.
yeah,
That's what I'm trying to prevent. I don't want to eliminate jobs per se, because the job itself takes a ton of technical skill. It takes a ton of knowledge of taxonomies and how to find information, all that. That's the skill that needs to persist,
right.
not the actual task of
Taping of labels to boxes.
sure. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and
Yeah.
I mean, even the digital equivalent of
Right.
that, having people go in and drag in, well, my job is to scan in the document that the engineer gave me and then label it 30 documents at a time. That's digital, right? I'm like,
Mhm.
no, it's not. No offense. Because the whole idea of if I can find the information without you doing that, what's the value in doing that?
Yeah.
And the technology is already there right now for with OCR and other things for me to be able to put in, here's the asset ID that I'm looking for, here's the building number that I'm looking for,
Hmm.
here's the date of the report that I'm looking for, the schedule of the report. Oh, cool. I can find it using web-like search.
Yeah.
Cool, found it. That's all you need to do. So why am I labeling it? So, and these are the logistics things. So when you think about it as logistics, all of a sudden it's different. But the problem is that we're too focused on, oh, I have a storage problem. Oh, I'm not ready for search yet, Davey,
Yeah.
because I haven't, solved my storage problem. Or is this like, don't if we already have infinite wireless communications across your country, don't build more telephone poles.
Yeah.
Like you just don't need them. That's the thing that people miss.
Oh man, this is like, I'm not introducing a new topic, but I'm going to put a pin in this for our next enterprise intelligence chat. But by the same token, I want to kind of conclude with I think we're wrapping up. We're getting towards the end of the hour anyway. Um, Something that I've observed, Jason knows this. I don't know, Steve, whether you know this, but over the last year or so, we did some renovations to our home. And so as a result of doing these renovations to our home, we've had lots of contractors and electricians and plumbers and everybody coming into the house to do all kinds of different things. And it's all done now, which is great. Um, One of the things that I noticed during this whole process so we've owned our home now for almost 20 years. Compared to the last 20 years, one of the things I've noticed is almost every one of these contractors that came into our house came in and did everything that they needed to do, kind of from a transactional point of view with an app on their phone. That wasn't the case 5 years ago or 6 years ago or 20 years ago. They would come in and they would, do some plumbing, they would do some electrical, and then they'd go out to the truck and they'd come back in with a piece of paper and they'd write some stuff down on the piece of paper, and then they'd say, "Oh, can I get your credit card?" And I'll write okay, I'm going to go out to the truck and I'm going to call this. Okay, it looks good. Thanks very much. Here's your receipt. And they'd give me a paper receipt. That's done. That's gone. Electricians, plumbers. I mean, obviously there are probably folks that still use, mom and pop stuff that, electricians and plumbers that come to your house that don't do this. But even the small to medium sized contractors that go out, rolling trucks, they're going out with apps and they're going out with their phone or a tablet. And if you're a hydro organization or a water company or anything like that, and you're rolling trucks out, you're rolling people out now with apps, and you've now killed the problem that has been killing us from an information governance and management perspective for 100 years, which is this explosion of paper that comes back to every organization of, well, we sent a truck out there and here's the piece of paper, put it in a box, scan it. Okay, well, scan it. Now we've got a PDF of it, and okay, that's good. But but the guy's writing's really messy and we can't see his signature, and there's supposed to be a label here, but there isn't, and it's upside down, and all this dumb stuff. That's all gonna die if it isn't dead yet. And I think to your point, Jason, I think like that's where this has gone and needed to go. And if it's true for the guy coming to put a new toilet in my second bathroom, then it's going to be true for all of us. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's literally part of the logistics of delivering a plumbing service. Mm-hmm. It's part of the logistics of delivering any service. You have information that flows in each direction. You have an asset that gets maintained. Maybe it's a toilet. It's fine. Yep. And there's transactional record of all this kind of stuff. And you need to recall it at some point. So it doesn't mean that it must be in this system or that system or whatever. It's going to be in the app. It's going to be wherever it is. And your ability to recall it for a business purpose is kind of the only thing that matters.
Yep. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
This was a wide-ranging, unexpectedly divergent conversation that I think actually had some common threads in it again. So we keep figuring out how to tie these things together, which I always enjoy.
For sure, Davey. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Enterprise Intelligence is a Shiny Docs podcast with Jason Cassidy and Davey Slimman, produced by Steven Schuntz. Copyright 2024. If you would like to learn more about how Shiny Docs can make it easy to organize your content, protect your data, and make your users happy, visit shinydocs.com today.